to promote Brandon Beane, to not change anything with the structure of the drafting, that to me was shocking. The press conference on Wednesday was unbelievable. All they had to do, Chris, is shut their mouth, and they have the best coaching opening by a wide margin.
You know, the Mike McDaniel hire in LA.
Awesome.
Perfect. I think it's perfect. My big question to you is, like, do you still text Kevin Stefanski?
He's a big Pearl Jam fan.
Given to Fly.
Given to Fly. Given to Fly is a great one.
He's a Falcon. All right, bookending the NFL season this year, we got Kevin Clark. Kevin joined us to start the year in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
At Kevin, what was it? The Borgata?
The Borgata. The
Borgata. Borgata, to do a live show, a preview of the NFL season. And he's back now to talk coaching, vacancies, and all things NFL. What up, Kev?
I do. Now that you mention it, last time I did this, I was like on day 2 of a 2-day hangover from the Notre Dame Miami game. And now I'm still kind of working off Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday from the national championship. So this might actually be a me problem. I might have to look in the mirror. Every time I do this show, I'm still in the process of recovering from as many light beers. Like, I've always thought light beer is like water basically, but I tested to the limit and I'm out of commission for
not anymore.
a week at a time now. Yeah. That's
not anymore. It was like water for us years ago, but now it's not like water. Only water's like water for us now. I can't even fucking drink orange juice. Too much sugar. So yeah, maybe it's I got impeccable timing, dude, for when I asked for these interviews. But take me inside, take me under the hood of Miami football right now and Miami football fandom.
Yeah, it sucks. It was fun. I was just telling your guys, I was never nervous the entire game because Miami's played the same big game for 2 years, and especially this year. They played Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Ohio State. Every game was the same. It was keep it close, and then the gotta have it drive they get, okay? And there were, the Louisville game, they gotta have it drive ended in a pick. That was the one hiccup. SMU overtime ends in a pick, so sometimes it doesn't end the way it should. But 9 times out of 10, they're able to close the game out. So once they get the ball back down 6, I thought they were going to win. And a lot of people have talked about that last play. Tony was open over the middle. The problem is you have 51 seconds. I would just give the ball to my best player and say, hey, do something, because he's been breaking tackles all year. I know you'd probably waste 15, 20 seconds off it. I'd rather have the ball at the 20, take a couple shots, than try to end the game on the left side, which is what they do with Keelan Marion. Richard Sherman made the point that basically you need another route on that side, the left side, to hold the corner. Otherwise, the corner is going to sit on the vertical route. And you didn't do that. It sucks. I got a little Dan Campbell in me. This might be our only shot. Like, that was the best quote of anybody for the past decade, is that everybody keeps saying, you'll be back. You'll be like, I saw a reporter in LaGuardia on Tuesday, and they were like, you got money, you got markers. I don't know, man. There might be a 16-team playoff next year. And then all of a sudden, you get one bad draw and you're not there. So I'm pretty down in the dumps over it. I want to ask you. So Mike Golick had a clip a couple weeks ago that I thought was really interesting, where he said that as a fan, he's significantly more depressed after a loss than he was as a player, because the player immediately has a checklist of things they have to do. They are so busy. They got to go get treatment that it never really hits you in the way it hits you as a fan, where you just sit with it and stew. Is that how you process it?
Yeah, but I also think it's something like, when you're a fan, you're powerless.
Yes.
So it's a feeling of frustration. It would have been so easy to not throw that ball, or it would have been so easy to do this or that in the third. And when you play, you realize that they get paid too, and that you did the very best you could. Like, when you're sitting in the cold tub on a Monday or on the treatment table, not to say you're not miserable after a loss, but it's a different kind of misery. And it's hard to describe. And honestly, as an analyst, I've been able to kind of get a glimpse into that a little bit more. Like, when I was a kid and my favorite team lost, that was agony.
Yeah.
And then, as a pro athlete, I got pretty used to losing. I'm not saying it ever got fun, but you find ways to compartmentalize it, and you realize how hard it is to win games. So, like, for a fan, it seems so easy.
Yeah.
just do it. Just do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I knew the right call. You know, Brandon Cooks, just catch the ball. You know, but when you play, it's a little different. So, you know, I use this example because I was talking to Dave Damashek about this.
Yeah.
I went back and watched our 2018 divisional round game against the New Orleans Saints that I knew when we played, it felt like we should have won the game. I'm not doing the thing that the Saints have done in the past where we said we would have won if we'd have gone to the next round. We got beat fair and square. But as a player, you know, it was excruciating. We were up 2 scores in the game, the whole thing. But at the end of the game, you're kind of like, you're so crushed. And this was my last game. You have to move on. You don't have a choice. When I went back and showed my kid the game on YouTube and watched it again, it was like I wanted to cry. It was like agonizing because you're able to kind of see it from that 30,000 foot view. So that's my opinion on it.
I have an uncle who flies planes, and I asked him if he's ever nervous, and he said that you're too busy to ever be nervous as a pilot. And I kind of feel like with a player, it's the same thing. You're like you're just compartmentalizing. You're saying I have to do this. As a fan, we're like the passenger on the plane, and we're like, what the hell is this turbulence? Figure this out. Get out of the turbulence.
Out.
Well, but the other thing is, and you mentioned like they get paid too thing and the understanding. I also think once you're in it, so like when we now, you know, 100 times more than I do, if not more, about the NFL. But like you also understand that a lot of these things, when we're talking about like why didn't they hold the corner, right? There's probably a pretty good reason that the play was designed the way it was, and it just wasn't executed, or somebody ran the wrong route, or somebody got blocked and they shouldn't have. Like there's so many things, and this happens all the time now, especially like with you see it all the time on Twitter where it's like, why isn't this guy playing? And then you ask somebody and it's like, well, actually that guy actually hasn't practiced on Wednesday or Thursday in a month and like is an alcoholic and doesn't know how to pass block. Like other than that, though, the guy definitely should be playing.
Yeah, that's huge, man. And I think even in being away from the game for a little bit, it helped me realize that like I don't know shit compared to what I knew when I was inside the building. And you know this from having heard things, the hearsay, the rumors, and the after the fact, like, hey, this is what it was actually like in the building this year. And you guys all in the media were talking about this thing. You were missing the most obvious thing to everybody inside the building, whether it's a personnel issue or an interpersonal issue, or, you know, it's and we learn this lesson all the time and we're a lot better about it now. But like, hey, if a quarterback misses a throw, you know, it's pretty healthy to take a beat and think, did the wide receiver break the wrong way or were they not on the same page? Like there's a reason that quarterback just sailed that ball. I think that's kind of a microcosm of, hey, there's always more to it than you know. So yeah, and that's a long way of diverting the conversation away from Miami just being a factory of sadness and Signetti being an absolute wagon.
You were I was gonna text you. You are a big part of like Miami inspirational TikTok, because the lowest moment of our program was when we lost in the Orange Bowl 48-0.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Randy Shannon went right to you at the whistle and gave you a big hug. And at the final whistle, I don't know, I was going to send you the screen. Yeah, Randy Shannon went right to you, gave you a big old hug. And so as like the announcers are going 48-0, the Orange Bowl is closing down, Chris Long is right there. And so you were a big part of,
you know why, maybe
these inspirational videos.
It's probably because, so I went to school with Chris Olsen, Greg Olsen's brother.
Yeah.
And, you know, spring break, we used to go down to Miami. We used to hang out and I'd sleep on Greg Olsen's couch. And, you know, we went to the facility once, which is really weird, like to think about doing. And you know what I mean? But like, they were like, hey, Greg was like, hey, we got to go to the facility for a second or something like that. One of his teammates was like, and we were in the car and they were like, do you guys want to come in and see? And we were like, yeah, sure. And I ran into Randy Shannon in the front hall of the facility. So maybe it was that. I don't know. But yeah, 48-0. I do remember that. I remember The Rock did the coin toss. I don't remember The Rock being that big, respectfully, at that point. But yeah, 48-0. It was awesome. I'll never forget that one.
There it is. Here we go.
Oh, here it is. Pull it up. Pull it up. We actually can do this because it's college football.
There it is.
Yeah, Randy Shannon. I like Randy Shannon.
What a beeline. Like, at what point we go down like what 24-0, and he's like, I'm going right for Chris Long after this.
I think I was just at midfield. and we made eye contact. So, dude, that's many moons ago. All right, so that was this. And were you at the game down there?
I was, yeah, I was down there.
Was it a great atmosphere? Was Miami underrepresented?
It was, and I'll say this, and I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. Partially, and I'm not a big moral victory guy, but you're drinking with all your friends from 11 a.m. until 7:30 when the game starts. I think part of us in our head, we're all like, we didn't know this is ever going to happen again, because we're losing 48-0 in the Orange Bowl, and we have Al Golden, and we've got Manny Diaz, and we're going 7-5, and we're losing to FIU, and we're losing to Duke, we're losing to Middle Tennessee State, and now we're back in the parking lot at the national championship game. And so I'm not a moral victory guy. I'm not like happy at all right now, and it's going to take me a couple months to reflect well on the season. But I do think the fact that you get to experience it again, I think there was some doubt this would ever happen again. So I'm good with everything.
Yeah. Well, I felt the same way when we lost the ACC championship. Yeah. Like, hey, sure, were we on the cusp of doing something historic, and this was probably our only chance to do that in my lifetime. Yeah, but I remember when we sucked, and I remember when we couldn't beat Tech, and we beat Tech this year. So, yeah, college football is a funny thing, man. Let's move to the pros. One of the main reasons I wanted to have you on was to talk about some of these head coaching vacancies, some of these coordinator vacancies. Has anything shocked you? What's been the most shocking hire, or for that matter, firing that you've seen so far?
I mean, the firings have been shocking. Like, obviously, Harbaugh, McDermott. McDermott shocked me only because I don't hate the idea of moving off him, because every season ends the exact same. But to promote Brandon Beane, to not change anything with the structure of the drafting, that to me was shocking. The press conference on Wednesday was unbelievable. All they had to do, Chris, is shut their mouth, and they have the best coaching opening by a wide margin. Who doesn't want to coach Josh Allen? Who doesn't want to be in Buffalo? The fan support. And then they start talking, and they make it weird. They made it weird. And now every coach is going to be like, I don't know, man. That's like, I'm sure they're going to get a good candidate, but they're kind of, and you almost wonder, like, maybe it's Daboll or maybe it's Joe Brady, where they're not concerned about getting a top candidate. That's also why you make this move now. You can't interview anybody who's in the conference championship games. Right. It's totally different. So I don't know. What I will say is I'm intrigued at the guys like Mike McDaniel taking his name out of the Browns head coaching job to go get the OC job with the Chargers. Like, that to me, I think it's probably a good idea. I'd say the same thing, even though it doesn't seem like they're getting the same kind of buzz like the Eagles job. I'd rather be the Eagles OC right now than the Browns head coach. I think you'd rather rehab your image, get a better job. If you're Mike McDaniel, like, he's got great plays. He would go to Cleveland. He would win 2 games next year because the roster stinks, and then he would get fired. And then he would never get another head coaching job again. And so I think you're seeing candidates play it smarter. And I think that's, like, career management is a big thing, because, like, Chip Kelly, the worst thing Chip Kelly did was he went to the Niners right after the Eagles and then got drummed out of the NFL. And, like, everyone saw he was out of plays, all that stuff. If he had gone and called plays for 2 years at a top organization, he has a totally different career. And so that's kind of how I look at it. But there's just, like, 10 openings is insane, dude.
Nuts. And honestly, you said something about passing up head coaching jobs, which I always thought was, like, it's easy to say, like, sitting on the sideline being like, hey, well, that's not a great job, man. Why don't you wait till the next cycle? Some guy who's never had one, or in this case, somebody who's already had one. But I think the Ben Johnson thing, where he kind of sat back and bided his time and passed up opportunities, and then waited a year and ended up in a spot where he inherits this generational talent at quarterback. And, you know, they're in the divisional round the first year. I'm not saying every opt-out ends up like that, but I do think it reinforces that, like, hey, you don't have to take the first job offering you get, you know. And I think yeah, is it a bit of a red flag that people are passing up the Philly OC job? Yeah. Cleveland, you understand, certainly. I also see the upside of like, hey, if you're the guy that pulls a sword from the stone in Cleveland, like you're a king.
Yeah, but Stefanski did it, and then they traded for Deshaun Watson. His career there was over.
Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, I think that's what people are missing about the Stefanski thing. The thing that makes me want to shake a fan, like just walk up and like shake him and be like, I know you might not like Kevin Stefanski, and I'm not saying he's a world beater of a coach, but people have such a short memory.
Yeah, I agree.
To not contextualize what was going on in Cleveland is insane to me. Insane to me. And, you know, obviously there was a big faction of people that just wanted anybody to take the blame for the situation that Shador walked into, which was a big, you know, that whole thing was a big firestorm. But I think for Kevin Stefanski, you can't have this conversation unless you contextualize the situation, which is that they saddled you with a guy with 40 civil cases whose arm was shot, who'd taken a bigger beating than fucking Andrew Luck in Houston. So the football player and the mind absolutely gone with this guy, and you mortgage the future for him. So
I completely agree. The other thing I need to mention in this, and we talk about surprises. I'm surprised, pleasantly surprised, that the Giants are letting John Harbaugh completely remake their franchise, because the feedback I got on the Giants job the past couple of months is that it's not as desirable as you think, because the organization is stuck in the past, because they have all of these guys who've been there for 30, 40 years, who do nothing. They can't get fired. They leak everything. The Giants just have more leaks. I mean, you saw this with the Harbaugh stuff, and then before, we had like the meeting notes on John Harbaugh. Like every 5 minutes, it was like John Harbaugh is now on the tarmac. John Harbaugh has boarded the plane. That's the best organizations don't have those kind of leaks. Okay, like that's just how it goes.
Right.
Part of that is just how many people are just there in the Giants building.
It's New York.
Seen it. We're recording this on a Thursday at 10, but the fact that they're able to reassign, they've been reassigning like the trainer, they've been reassigning a bunch of the front office guys. Joe Shane has been, who I think is a really bad GM, has lost a lot of his power. He's just kind of be ahead of scouting while John Harbaugh brings in his own guys. Harbaugh is bringing in a bunch of his coaches. The Giants, and this is what I've been saying, I thought Tomlin would have been a good fit. I said this during the season. Even like a Marcus Freeman, you needed someone to come in to tell the Giants how it's going to be, because the Giants keep failing at figuring out, we're going to hire Ben McAdoo, we're going to hire Brian Dable. Like they keep botching the hire. They needed a Tom Coughlin to be like, all right, this is what winning is, and like, you know, they're a family-run business. They got a bunch of Maras and Tishes all over the place. Like that's unavoidable in NFL facilities, I think. But what you need is an empowered coach who's just going to tell everybody how it's going to be.
And, you know, heard this point made this morning, like the roster's not chock full of people that have won before.
No.
And so, you know, Harbaugh has definitely won before. Like the track record of coaches winning again in the second stop, I think it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, you know, but I think he brings a certain kind of calm and adult sensibility to the building, which has been, they've been throwing everything they can at the wall and hoping it sticks. You mentioned some of those hirings, the McAdoo, the Joe Judge hiring. And, you know, Daboll, we're going to talk about him in a second with the Bills job, but, you know, he inherited Daniel Jones, won a playoff game with him. Danny Dimes gets hurt. And you said what you said about the GM. You know, I don't put that chapter entirely on Brian Daboll. I think it's been a tough organization to win in, but you look at the roster, there are some talented players. I like the front. I think the Neighbors thing is great. And Dart is like kind of on the cusp of being a guy that I think, you know, makes you think, all right, we got a franchise quarterback. I want to see another year. You know, I'm always tentative with rookie quarterbacks unless they blow you away. But yeah, no, I think there are some pieces there.
I think the young talent's been overrated. I think a lot of it I don't know. I've never met Joe Shane. I think in the last 2 months of the season, I think the young talent became overrated because just from looking at it, it looked like Joe Shane was trying to leak that they had a bunch of young talent to keep his job. That's what it read to me. And so I think you take all of these ingredients, and it's going to be a multi-year build. Like that's the one thing I think people need to understand with the Giants is it's not going to be like an overnight thing. The young talent's overrated. Dart needs to change the way he plays. Like I know, and Giants fans will tell you like, oh, he wasn't diagnosed with a concussion, whatever it was, 8 out of the 10 times he was checked. Or whatever.
Yeah, they didn't catch him. They didn't catch him concussed, dude.
He went to a blue medical tent for a concussion check on average once a game because I think he did it a couple times in a few games. That is not sustainable. So you have to tell him to change the way he plays, or else he's going to be out of the freaking league. And so I just think they needed someone to come in and change everything about the way they do business. And if Shane wants to stay, fine. Because here's the deal: whether it's Ryan Poles, whether it's George Payton in Denver, whether it's Les Snead, we've seen GMs stay where they are. Coach comes in, tell them how it's going to be, and it ends up being fine. I thought Ryan Poles did not deserve an extension. And the joke I always say is like, you get Ryan Poles got relegated from GM to Ben Johnson's buddy. That's it. That's his job title. Okay. But that can work if the coach is good enough. And it looks like it is in Chicago. Looks like obviously it is in Denver. And it can work with the Giants.
The thing is, though, you mentioned Chicago, offensive play caller.
Yeah.
You mentioned Denver, offensive play caller. Harbaugh is going to have to do this thing where, and every coach that doesn't major in offense and has a young quarterback, like if you hit on an offensive coordinator, you're going to have to hire a new one in the next 1 or 2 years. So, that puts you squarely in a moment where you're trying to figure out, like, projecting ahead, like, do you want to extend or, pick up the option on your young quarterback? Like you're kind of in that zone of considering that. So, I think? I think speaking of hey, do you hire offense? Do you hire defense? I think there's a bunch of defensive coaches that are sitting there pulling for Mike McDaniel.
Yep.
And
completely
they're
agree.
saying, hey, it's been fucking too long since a guy not named Bill Belichick was able to go do this thing with a major in defensive football. And it bodes well for other guys getting hired. And we know, obviously, this year, Minter is a big name. Yeah. We know that Halfley got hired in Miami. There's a number of guys that are trying. But I always caution, like, hey, if you're not hiring an offensive coordinator, you are eventually going to have to replace that offensive mind, because even if you find one, that person is going to leave if you have any success.
I found when I met with McDonald when he was an assistant a few times, I found that he studied offense a lot more than a lot of DCs did. I think that a lot of times when he was picking the brain, I think a lot of times DCs pick other DCs' brains. From what I gathered, Mike McDaniel just picked the OC's brains and said, hey, I want to do this. Like, tell me what I'm doing wrong if I design it like this. It reminds me a little bit of Kyle Shanahan on the offensive side of the ball. Richard Sherman had told me that one of the reasons he went and worked in Atlanta for Dan Quinn, or wanted to work for Dan Quinn, and they had such a good process, was all he wanted to do was learn how to beat Dan Quinn's cover 3. That's all he wanted to do. And that's why he was so good at being able to beat it later, is because he understood the rules of the defense. And I think on the flip side, McDaniel wants to understand the offensive rules to break them.
Right.
And so having like Clint Kubiak in the building is awesome for him, because he'll be able to beat that or try to beat that for a long time. And by the way, can with the defensive personnel he has. So with McDaniel, for me, I actually think he's such a forward-thinking guy, just from our limited meetings, that I think he's going to be able to have this assembly line of offensive coordinators where people are going to want to work there. I also think if you don't meddle, like that's an attractive pitch. Hey, come here. We've got Gray Zabel. We've got Charles Cross. We've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I just saw a stat is like, there's 2 guys in the world, one guy in the world who's led the league in slot yards 1 year and outside yards another year. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Slot was this year. Outside was last year. And then with he and Puka are the only guys who've ever had at least 100 yards on 8 different routes in a season.
Wow.
And it's like, why would you not want Jackson Smith and Jigba as your chess piece if you're an offensive coordinator? So even if Clint Kubiak takes the Baltimore job or whatever, it doesn't matter. Like that, the building blocks there are unbelievable.
No question. No question. I think getting back to another interesting opening was Atlanta. I love the personnel there. I think we all kind of this year had the same sentiment, which was, golly, sometimes they can fool you and look like a contending football team, even without a real answer at quarterback. And sometimes they look totally hapless. It's finding the consistency with this group, and I think that's part of why Raheem got let go. But I think the Stefanski thing, as we talked about earlier, is a perfect fit for that offense. And you talk about like, you've got Bijan Robinson now to work with. You've got Drake London outside. You have a good offensive line, a group that like, honestly, you're not reinventing the wheel from a schematic standpoint. Obviously, Zach Robinson last year, but this is more outside zone. This is more, sideline to sideline run action. And I think it's going to work out. And my big question to you is like, do you still text Kevin Stefanski?
He's a big Pearl Jam fan. And so there's that.
What do you think his favorite song is?
He says his favorite album is No Code.
So he's a no code guy?
He's a no code guy. Yeah. He's a no code guy. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with that. Smile, bunch of different things. So here's the deal about Stefanski.
I would have pegged him as a Vitology guy.
So I think true Pearl Jam fans have to be a little like, you have to throw a weird album just so people don't think you're like a even flow guy, right?
Dude, fuck that. 10 is incredible.
10 is incredible. But here's the deal. So I talked about the owners' meetings, and we did a no code clip. I put it out, and then I had all these people quote tweeting and being like, I saw Kevin Stefanski in the pit at like 2 years ago at Pearl Jam, and he knew every word. And so like, there's a lot of bona fides with Kevin Stefanski.
Given to Fly.
Given to Fly is a great one.
He's a Falcon.
There you go. Yield, no code. There's a lot of options there. Here's the deal about that. So everybody loves Matt Ryan. There's a lot of respect for Matt Ryan in the NFL. And so people really wanted that job. They're gonna hire a GM who's kind of like just basically a scouting director, and then Matt Ryan's gonna be really, really involved from what I understand. With Penix, like the fatal flaw they've had, Chris, is that they thought all of their actions were predicated on Michael Penix being like the best quarterback on earth, right? Even like you're going all in for James Pierce, which by the way looked really, really good last year. Good. But you're taking on all this extra money with Kirk Cousins. The whole thing, their approach, I think the last 3 years has been very arrogant, which I think really hurts NFL teams, is when you say, we know this to be true. We have to have this. Michael Penix is going to hit, and then once that happens, X, Y, Z. It was a very arrogant approach from the front office and the coaching staff. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. And the building blocks, as you talked about, the skill guys, James Pierce, who I just mentioned, the defense, they finally have a pass rush. I think there's something there. Jesse Bates, who you talk to people in Cincinnati, the fatal flaw of that whole build was that they let Jesse Bates walk. And so I think there's a lot to build on there. I think they're
the Watts kid
early.
Did you mention the
Xavier Watts, yeah, from Notre Dame.
He's a fucking stud. They have a lot of young talent, and keeping Jeff was the right thing.
They are what Joe Shane tried to leak the Giants were. Yeah.
There's something to that. I also think they got like a little mini no-fly zone coming in, man. Yeah. Like we always talk about this. Why don't more groups, if you're going to lose your OC in a year, like a la, I don't know, say, I'm trying to think of somebody who left the nest, and then a year later they fired the head coach, and they're like, well, fuck, I wish we'd have hired that guy who was in-house. Right. Like a Joe Brady thing. Let's say the Bills think Joe Brady is like the truth, and, and he's the key to the whole thing. Maybe they weren't all in on firing Sean McDermott, but you do it a year early and you say, hey, we don't want to lose Joe Brady in this cycle. We can project a year out. I'm not saying Ulbrich should have been head coach, but it's not often that they retain one side of the ball. And I thought it was like the right thing to do, and I'm glad they did it right. I just did not expect them to get that right.
No, I think Stefanski is a good coach and understands what he had there. And we'll
Yeah.
see. Tommy Reese is going to be the OC there. Stefanski, I assume, will return play calling. Sounds like the Browns didn't want to play call plays last year, so we'll see about that. But I really like the hire, and I think that again they're going to be pretty good. I also think that part of it, again, we talk about how coaches are getting smarter at this career management stuff.
Yeah.
Taking a job in the NFC South is a pretty good deal right now. Like, you got the Bucks, but the Bucks aren't a super team. The Panthers certainly aren't a super team. The Saints, we'll see what they're doing. I think Tyler Shuck's really good.
Yeah.
But I kind of see it. It's almost like college now, where it's like James Franklin goes to, no offense, a program.
Fuck you. Yeah, I agree.
With a bright future. I forgot that I shouldn't do any hokey praise, but it's like,
This is a pretty good place to be. Yeah, shit.
yeah, no, but it's like, with James, he's probably thinking about like, hey, I have to beat one team a year. It's Miami. If I go to Arkansas, if I go to South Carolina, if that opened, I'm screwed. I got to beat LSU every year. Like, I kind of feel like, just from talking to different coaches during the process, like, they're starting to think about that kind of stuff too, where it's like, where can I win?
Well, it's one of the things that, like, you look at the Miami job. I don't mean like U of M. I mean the
Dolphins,
pro football team, but like, they, Halfley has his work cut out for him, and it is interesting they went defense because of the great quarterbacks in that division now. But like, you've got Drake May and Josh Allen in that division. I mean, like, that's a tough job. And the same thing with the Arizona job.
Yeah.
Like, Arizona, and there are some pieces on that team, some guys I like, but like, you're going to go to the NFC West. Like, that's what makes that job so hand grenade-y. It's like,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you look at something like, say, Stefanski in the NFC South. You mentioned all the cracks in the door there. The AFC South, Robert Saleh, Tennessee. There is reason to believe, and I believe this, he's the best quarterback in the South. Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Within
no here.
By next year, I think I would hope it's apparent in the next 2 years. He didn't. I mean, like, nobody's saying this year who is better than Trevor Lawrence or anything like that. But like, how I feel about Trevor. Like, and you know how I feel about Cam Ward. I guess that's implied in making the statement, but it is the South. Like, and it's a softer landing zone than some of these other places. And
hey, what would you do about CJ Stroud?
I wish they'd have benched him at the half.
Me too.
And I also believe that, like, that didn't have to be permanent, but you're in a playoff game and this guy's giving you 6 quarters of like terrorism, like legit terrorism. And so I would have made the move. Do I think he's going to be able to recover mentally? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So, and the ceiling on him, it looked high year one, but it hasn't looked high since. And so I don't know what to do about that. Like, honestly, I have no idea.
I think a couple of things. Number one, I talked to somebody yesterday who said that the word around the league is that he needs a clean pocket to thrive, which you don't get a lot in the NFL, frankly. You just don't. Like, if you're a clean pocket guy, bad things are going to happen.
It's increasingly harder for you to find a happy place.
Correct. And the other part of it is the Texans could win with so many quarterbacks because the way they play on defense, that you basically only CJ Stroud could lose some of these games by turning the ball over in just insane, impossible situation where you're just like, oh, what the hell was he doing? Like, what was that throw? Like, what was that? You're almost turning into like late stage Philly Carson Wentz, where you're just like, how did that ball come out of his hand? Why was that decision made? And
honestly, it was worse.
Yeah.
And that's not a Carson defense.
Yeah. No. It was awful.
It was worse.
And so, like, how many quarterbacks in the league could win a playoff game with that Houston defense is creating havoc and will end the two best edge rush pairs in football? The defense that creates turnovers. Derek Stingley, like, I think 3 of the top 5 DBs by passer rating are on Houston. Like, you just need a game manager who's not going to turn the ball over, and you've got the exact opposite of that. That's why I think, I had Albert Breer on my show yesterday, And he was like, I think we're going to see an offseason, not that any of these guys are going to get dealt, where teams are going to get more aggressive about trading for some of these mid-level guys. Yeah, but also, like, does Houston say, screw it, we'll let somebody else figure out with CJ Stroud? Does Carolina do that with Bryce Young?
No.
Where it's like, instead of giving the $60 million, you just say, let's start over.
I think Bryce has an opportunity to prove it this year. I thought what he did in the playoffs and what he did down the stretch. I don't think they came into the season thinking they'd run a very ambitious offense in the passing game. And I think as the season went on, they got more confident in what he could do, and it culminated in them, letting him rip it a little bit, like in some of the key spots. And I admittedly I see good football in Bryce, and I've been a proponent of picking up this option because there's no harm in doing it. Anything speculative beyond that, like, it really is pointless to me because you have a 1-year trial. But with CJ, I don't know. And I hand up, I'm a guy that first year I was like, he's got a chance to be one of those guys. Because he had that pocket presence that I felt like his eyes were always down the field. Mm-hmm. And ironically, the thing that's killing him now is his eyes are always down the field. Yes. And so you can get too comfortable back there. And I look at Houston and I say, yeah, like, the time is now. There's with Carolina, you can claim a lot of things, but you can't claim that you're wasting a window with Bryce.
Right.
You are wasting a window in Houston. If you don't like the quarterback, you need to get busy. And so, yeah, that one is that one's tough for me. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT and you will get up to a $1,500 new player offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Just download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code GREENLIGHT. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. If that bet loses, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Then get access to second chance promos, odds boost tokens, same game parlays, and so much more throughout the entire football playoffs. BetMGM, make it legendary. The other offensive coordinator spot that I think is really obviously very interesting is the Buffalo thing. And we've kind of hinted at it earlier. But what is your solution if you're Brandon Beane and you're somehow handpicking the head coach? Like, what are you doing? It kind of feels like, hey, my co-host Macon, one of my co-hosts, Macon.
I do.
He renovated his kitchen, and we got this inside joke this year, me, Stanford, Steve, and him, because he blew up his kitchen, but he had no plan. And so here he is sitting there without a kitchen and 3 young kids, but they're making the plans for the renovation while the kids are eating like off a George Foreman grill. Like, that to me feels like what happened in Buffalo. And I'm not saying that they don't have a plan, but the longer it goes without them landing that big fish, when they fired Sean McDermott, I was like, they have to have something waiting in the wings. Like some John Gruden kind of corollary.
Like Tomlin.
Yeah. Or Tomlin. Like they must have their guy, but they don't apparently. No. And the short list of guys that I saw was Udinsky, Anarumo, and I love Lou, but that's just a fact-finding expedition. And Lynn.
They're no different from McDermott.
Which is not doing it. And Dayball, which is, that one is like maybe of interest to me.
It also, they said that Josh Allen wasn't consulted. If it's Dayball, it feels like Josh Allen was consulted.
No question.
You know like, come on.
But you know what? Dayball also might have pushed Josh.
I agree.
Like, Dayball's kind of an asshole in a good way.
I agree.
I've been around BD, and when I was in New England, he's a lot different guy, I'm sure, and he hadn't been a head coach yet. Like, he's the perfect mix of cool, can be your buddy, but can also be a fucking asshole. Where I think Josh needs that sometimes, and every player needs it sometimes. The other thing is this, though. Everybody's focused on the offensive hire because we think it's going to be an offensive hire because you go the other way, and it's arguably the best, most talented quarterback in football, arguably. But you are thumbing your nose at a guy who coached defense pretty well in the second half of games down the stretch with a group that was pretty untalented. And again, you can say what you want about Sean McDermott, but Brandon Beane somehow survives, and a couple years in a row, your secondary depth, your pass rush isn't there. You can't stop the run. Like, what is it that they do well other than disguise some looks?
Yeah.
And make adjustments in the second half of games defensively. Like, you have to figure out like how you're going to replace Sean McDermott on defense too. So you have to nail 2 hires.
I want to just tell a 10-second Macon story, which is Jason Gallagher. The funniest thing that he's ever seen in his life was going back to the Super Bowl house last year.
Yes.
That Macon was because he was texting with the Uber driver. Do you know the story?
Yeah, I think he told me about
the Uber driver. Texting with the Uber driver, and as you guys are going down, whatever street you're going down to New Orleans, Macon just starts texting the Uber driver, "This is a trap. Turn around. Turn around. These people are trying to kidnap you." And he just was, and the Uber driver kept looking at his phone, and Jason Gallagher could see what he was texting, and he was like, "What is happening right now?" And Macon just wanted to make everybody in the car laugh with the most aggressive, offensive text in the world, but just be like, "These people are going to kill you."
It's unbelievable.
And the Uber driver just kept driving and dropped you guys off. And I guess maybe this had happened before. But
that's drunk Macon, dude. That's drunk Macon. Macon doesn't get drunk a lot, but he got drunk like 2 years ago, which is memorable because that's kind of like the last time we went out drinking. And he gets on the phone outside the bar, and I'm like, "Who you calling?" He's like, "I'm calling Uber." He's just a fucking. He turns into a damn lush, dude.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
He's mindless. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. Wait, I got do you want to do Macon or do you want me to do the Bills? I just want to say this.
Do some combination of Macon and the Bills.
All right, I'll do this. Right now, Bills fans are texting the Uber driver saying, "Turn around. We're getting kidnapped."
Yes.
Come on, man.
Yes.
First of all, Keon Coleman's still on the roster.
That's an insane bus throwing.
He's a second-round pick. It's not like Vernon Golston, where he's a top 10 guy, and it's like, oh, you know, the Jets missed a generational opportunity to upgrade the defense here with Vernon Golston. It's a second-round pick. You traded back. He scored a touchdown on Sunday, by the way.
It was a good touchdown.
Terrible. I think Keon Coleman's terrible, but it's not like he's the worst player in the history of the world that we need to have a committee to figure out how it happened. Okay. So I couldn't believe that. And I think there's probably someone tweeted at me yesterday and it made me laugh that like Pagula looked at Bisciotti's press conference and was like, "What if we did that, but bad? What if we did the bad version of Bisciotti just being like awesome and transparent?" Pagula did the worst possible version of that. So if I'm Brandon Beane, what I would have done, so like the whole structure, it's opposite in the NBA. If you get kicked upstairs, the first thing you need to do is name a GM and pretend they're in charge of the draft. You have to. And so a couple people would say, well, maybe their coach, the next coach brings a guy that kind of is his guy in the front office, and then you change your structure that way. If I'm a Bills fan, I'm very discouraged that the drafting process feels like it's not going to change because they keep missing on guys. They don't have any receivers. Again, talking about arrogance, they were very arrogant about this receiving thing. They thought that they could just throw screens to Khalil Shakir and then hit backs and running backs, and it just wasn't. It wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to work. And then they missed on the pass rush. I was really disappointed. You know, they had that game against Mahomes where they pressured him more than they ever had. Mahomes had ever been pressured in the regular season, and he had under 50% completion percentage for the first time ever. Part of that was Michael Hoyt just in his face all the time. He gets hurt late in the game. And I said this is like a week before the trade deadline. They had to go out and trade a big pass rusher. That was your window. And maybe that would help with if you get another defensive lineman. Maybe that helps with the run game problems, which was a disaster. They should have lost to Jacksonville, but Liam Cohen got too cute and abandoning the outside runs, which were getting 15 yards every time they did it. There's a lot of holes on this roster. And I think part of the narrative here, everybody loves the Bills job. Everybody loves the Ravens job. everybody loves the Steelers job because of some combination of roster with the first two I mentioned, the quarterback, but all three of those places have real holes on their roster.
Yeah.
And I think that as much as people want that, I mean, for God's sakes, the Steelers have 3 coaches since 1969. You're going to get a long leash there. You're going to be fine, okay? But I do think part of it is that, do you want to be the guy, if the roster turns out to be a 7-10 roster, do you want to be the guy holding the bag there? So I think there's some not pause because people want those jobs, but like there's some downside to taking those jobs, especially in Buffalo, because do you want to be the first guy who doesn't, get you the second round of the playoffs in the last few years with Josh Allen?
Dude, it's a huge gamble. It was a big gamble for Buffalo, and that's why I thought they must have had something like a bird in hand. And yeah, you do have to replace also a defensive coordinator who over the last 5-6 years has kept the points down largely, despite having next to no talent. And, you look at the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, they go get Kincaid, in the first round, a couple years ago. But they have not poured in that wide receiver room. And then the look by throwing a player on the roster under the bus in public like that.
Unbelievable.
Using and lying about it, really, because I'm not saying that Bean doesn't have plausible deniability or that video might mean nothing, but that video where he's like, it's good he ran a 4.57 so we can go get him. Like, that didn't seem like, if you were anti that player, you're not saying that. And so it's just that's what's making the job. It's ironic because you have Josh Allen, who, and you almost have to whisper that these days that you think he's a great quarterback because a lot of people are mad that 2 guys on ESPN are too soft on him. That thing has become like my biggest pet peeve in sports media. The quarterback discourse is now politics. It's now politics. And I can't take it anymore. It's you can't even talk about it. And it's gotten to the point where fans feel gaslit by players and people in the media who played because they don't agree about Josh Allen. And it's the same thing. When people kill Lamar, I defend Lamar. When people kill Josh, I defend Josh. These guys don't grow on fucking trees. And can you believe the nerve of these team doctors in Buffalo giving Josh Allen surgery, babying him? They're giving him surgery on his foot. What a baby.
My thing about this, and
part of loving this guy.
Part of it started with Jalen Hurts last year, where it became a joke. Like, you couldn't rank Jalen Hurts. Like, if you did a top 10 list, if he was number 2, you got killed. If he was number 9, you got killed. Mm-hmm. With Josh, what I don't love now is that it's a little bit like, and I only understand this peripherally, but like it's like Stan Twitter and pop music, where it's like everything's a conspiracy. Oh, Taylor Swift got 1 billion streams. Well, that's because they bought bots or whatever. Yes. Like you see stories about this all the time where like so-and-so is accusing so-and-so. Didn't Drake file a lawsuit against Kendrick Lamar because he said that everything was fake? Like, it just feels like the quarterback discourse is becoming more and more like that. Like, I saw a thing yesterday that blew my mind. It was like, someone was like, well, people only like Josh Allen in the media because they're both represented by CAA, which, first of all, a lot of people in every walk of life are represented by CAA. And I would also say that very few people have any idea who's represented by anybody else. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, it's not that.
And it's just like, but then everything becomes a conspiracy.
Dude, it's Occam's razor, man.
Yes.
Here's what it is. The guy's 6'6" and throws the fucking ball 70 yards on a rope and can run, and he's tough and puts his head down and is actually a pretty good thrower of the football. Here's the thing that drives me crazy. And listen, he blew that game the other day. I'm the first to tell you. And I'll still get you're kid gloving him. That's crazy. The standard he's held to as a thrower is ironically higher than we hold like Matt Stafford to these days. Stafford has had some stinkers.
Yeah.
Late in the season last year, this year. these guys miss throws. Drake May puts the ball on the ground a bunch. Like, I think collectively, and part of this is, when you are missing Mahomes and Joe Burrow and those guys, the aggregate of all the quarterbacks is going to be a little sloppier. But there was a lot of bad quarterback play last weekend. And the guy that really takes it on the chin is the one with probably the 7th best roster in the divisional round. And that's not taping. That's just being real, because everybody's reaction to Sean McDermott getting fired was the same. Not Brandon Beane, even people that probably hate Josh. Because, you know what it is? I don't care if Bill Polian was mean to Lamar Jackson. It has nothing to do with the way I analyze Josh Allen.
Right.
And it's the same thing for Lamar. Like, I love Lamar, and I've defended him at every turn. I'm going to do the same thing for Josh Allen. It is a team sport. However, I don't want to go too far into this, but the comparisons between Josh and Lamar in the postseason are crazy. This week has been hell for content creators trying to talk about quarterbacks, dude.
Well, here's the deal. So I'm intrigued. You mentioned the bad quarterback play. What I'm intrigued by is, so there have been more fourth quarter lead changes in this year than any playoffs by a wide margin. And in fact, the wild card round broke the record for fourth quarter lead changes for an entire playoffs. And we still had 3 more rounds to go. And I when thinking about why that is, partially is coincidence or luck or whatever, but I also think part of it is that the teams with really good quarterbacks have missed on some massive roster decisions. Massive. So it allows Bo Nix and the Broncos to catch up. It allows the Texans to catch up to where they're an elite team. On the NFC side, it allows some teams without great quarterbacks to be in the mix for it. So I think you're seeing a little bit of like, if Baltimore and Buffalo and Kansas City did their job, or Cincinnati did their job, the playoffs would be over. We would be ready to crown them. Or we'd say only Josh Allen can beat Patrick Mahomes, or only Lamar Jackson, whatever. But because of the roster decisions that have been bungled the last few years by all of those teams, Cincinnati is a little bit different because their philosophy is just to not really be that aggressive. I think we're seeing a lot of openings for less than teams. I think that's why these playoffs are so wide open and fascinating, is because some of these GMs just have botched it.
Y'all know I'm a bit more selective with my nicotine pouches these days. For me, the quality of the pouch is what I prioritize, which is why I'll pop in a Zone Wintergreen. 6 milligrams, all I need. Whether I'm kicking back and watching ball on a Sunday, floating the river with Cowboy, can't wait to do that, and the rest of the Greenlight crew, or breaking down film ahead of a show, Zone easily gets me locked in. With its smooth feel and a variety of flavors, Zone is always on our game day roster. Whether you like fresh, mint flavor, or you're into a citrus flavor, check out their roster of options. Use promo code GL20 at nicokick.com/zone for 20% off at checkout. The Mike McDaniel hire in LA.
Awesome.
Perfect. I think it's perfect.
Well, I want to say a lot of Dolphins fans were like, Mike McDaniel's a great play designer, but has no feel for the game. Jim Harbaugh has a great feel for the game. And so like, with those plays and Jim Harbaugh knowing how they should flow, I think that's unbelievable for Justin Herbert.
I do too. I also think, like, when you watch LA at times, I would wonder, hey, where are the easy reads? Where are the easy answers in the passing game? And I look at that and I say, this is the perfect guy for it. He's the guy that's been putting on a silver platter for Tua and others for the better part of 5 years in Miami. And you talk about outside zone. That's one thing that I think the Chargers feel like they're not getting enough out of. The numbers back that up. They were really bad outside zone this year. I think Miami, obviously prolific there. But the thing that I think the Chargers get more out of with Mike McDaniel is the play action. Because, and for Mike McDaniel, you get more out of the play action in LA because you had Tua, who, if you're running outside zone and you're booting, quarterback off it, you're moving the pocket. Like, Tua's not going to move the pocket. Like, he's just not a running quarterback. Justin Herbert can move the pocket for you. You can also get Hampton on the edge. It feels like a good fit and kind of a perfect marriage for Jim. But here's what I'm imagining. Was it Meet the Parents? in, I bet you would Panama Red, like the kind of the interrogation that De Niro put Stiller through. Like that's how I imagine that interview process going for Jim and Mike. Like Jim was probably like, "So do you smoke pot, Mike?" Okay, I know I can't say that because he's sober, but I also wonder because I think the Dolphins have some really creative. When I watch them, like they got creative ways of getting to the same thing, which is something in the run game that I think is very valuable for Miami, and then for LA, and then also like the use of 2-back sets, like to pony 2 running backs. I think this is going to be a good fit, and I also think it's ironic that. We spent 4 years now it's like 6 years comparing Justin Herbert and Tua because of the draft class. And McDaniel's like, yeah, let me go see what that's like over there. It's a little bit different.
He was watching our tweets and be like, yeah,
you guys are fucking right. Like, but he did a really good job of like kind of playing supportive.
Yes.
And so anyways.
Oh, and by the way, the offensive line is going to be better. It's going to be healthy next year. They might win the Super Bowl next year.
Well, yeah, you got to get over Justin Herbert's playoff performances, which I can't even defend anymore. It's hard, but he was pressured like 75% of the fucking time in that game, and Greg Roman was calling the plays. It was so bad that Jim was like, "Hey, buddy, old pal, like this has to end." The thing that's exciting though, you talk about all that outside zone, like the tip of the spear in that concept is the tackle play, and so you've got that in LA. The last coordinator I want to talk about was Petzing.
Yeah.
The Petzing hire. I think this actually makes more sense than people think. It is. He doesn't have a splash face. I think people like and name like it's not a splash hire like, but I think it's going to work. I do if they can get the personnel right. Because if you know anything about Arizona the last couple of years, in 23 and 24, and you could chalk a lot of it up to James Conner, but they were elite running the football. Mm-hmm. And this year, you lose your whole running back room. You have 10-plus O-line combinations. I just think most people were like, this guy, didn't they suck this year? I think there are tight end usage proclivities that are definitely going to play well in
number one in targets to Trey McBride the last 2 years. Sam Laporta, get healthy, buddy.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and they want to put 13 on the field. Like that's what they did. Like I don't know of too many teams that ran more 12 and 13 than Arizona. And then I found this nugget too. The goal to go stuff for Detroit this year was terrible. I think they were 27th in successful play percentage in the low red, that being 10 and in, the way I'm defining it. And then in the Cardinals through 23 through 25, they were top 10 in those spots. So like, I think that's a big thing. Like Detroit just had trouble in some areas that they were really good in, namely like the zone runs this year. They sucked. Now I know that Petzing's like a gap scheme guy and you're going to run more counter, but I also think they want to kind of get back to what they do well. And I think the zone run scheme, although the personnel fit them running inside zone in Arizona, I think the outside zone probably he's got some wrinkles and ideas of how they can get back to, their bread and butter. And then this is the most diabolical one, Kev, that I saw was Petzing was in Ben Johnson's wedding. So that's a fucking psychological power move, dude.
Wait, hold on. I gotta look this up. Where did they work together in Miami?
They worked together. It was where was it? Yeah, they were GAs together at Boston College in 2010.
Boston College.
Yeah, and then Ben became the tight end coach in 2011, and Petzing was a GA still there. So they had 2 years. But this is the most interesting thing. Ben Johnson he's getting the squeeze put on him. They fucking hate him in Green Bay. LaFleur hates him. LA, the Rams, I don't think McVay likes him because of what he did to LaFleur. And then Dan Campbell hiring his groomsmen. That's a mind fuck. You basically delete that friend, and the guy knows you well.
Tough. Ryan Day was on the Boston College staff when those guys were there too. What were they cooking in 2011 in BC? Because I have a friend who went to BC who was telling me when during the Ohio State run, they were like, oh, yeah, BC had all these stud coaches on their roster. And so I looked it up. 2010 and 11, Ryan Day, Drew Petzing.
Who was the head coach in 2011?
What's it?
Spaziani?
Hold on, we're looking it up. Yes, Frank Spaziani. Luke Kuechly was a captain.
Do they have to hire Paisans there?
They went 4-8, by the way. Luke Kuechly, Chase Redding was the quarterback. Ryan Day, Ben Johnson, tight ends coach. Ryan Day, wide receivers coach. Yeah.
Dude, check out the names, dude. There's just Irishmen and like Polish guys and
Ryan Quigley. He had a
guys.
few years in the league, in the show. As a punter. Man.
O'Brien, Hafley, Gunnell, he was an interim, Adazio, Spaziani, Jagodinsky. Yeah, you go all the way back to 2007 there. Hold on, I'm just looking at one thing. No black head coaches at Boston College in their history. What a shocker.
Jeff Hafley was the coach at Boston College like 3 years ago.
No, I know.
It's crazy.
They weren't that good, and then he got the Green Bay job. And I actually kind of like Jeff Hafley, and he's got his work cut out for him in Miami. But they weren't very good defensively without Michael Parsons, which is kind of why they made the trade. But I am like kind of surprised his name stayed as hot as it did.
I agree. And then I saw a couple quotes that was like, well, once he starts, the press conference and stuff, people are going to like him. I don't
get
love
that.
I get it, but I also don't love the idea of talking your way into a job. I think you have to have a resume. And I know communication, like communication is important. Like I'll tell you this though. I watch a lot of, just to learn about ball, I watch a lot of coaching clinics on YouTube and stuff. And you'll come across like Dan Lanning from 6 years ago when he's like, whatever he was, linebackers coach, whatever. And you're like, oh, I get it. Like he's an amazing communicator. I get this. Of course he's going to be a great coach. And then you see other coaches and it's not the same. But I do think that like these guys who interview well or whatever it is, I think you have to make sure that they have the resume to back that up. And I'm kind of with you. I think the Dolphins are going to be, I think people like the GM. But I also think that like Micah Parsons made that defense go.
Yes. And I have a theory that the worse an introductory press conference is, the better. And, I can support that with data. Dan Campbell, everybody was like, oh, this guy's a barbarian. He's the worst. He's a fucking idiot. How violent is that? It's like football's brown suit. It's like, it's like, were we really arguing about a football coach metaphorically saying he was going to bite kneecaps? Like, get over it. I can't believe it. When you think about some of the things going on today in society, we were worried about that. Nick Sirianni fumbled through his press conference, was super nervous. There were a few more examples that I've cited over the years. It's almost like the worse the introductory press conferences, the better.
Well, so I asked
Staley. Remember when Staley interviewed and people were like, oh my God.
Staley's a great.
Oh, he was so fucking smart and smooth.
Well, also the thing that drove me nuts about that,
Liam Cohen,
Duval. Liam Cohen, yeah. So the thing that drove me nuts about Staley is Staley was giving all these interviews about how he could stop the run without devoting resources to the run. Okay, and then nobody stopped and said, "Hey, has anyone noticed he had Aaron Donald? He had Aaron Donald, and he was trying to be like, well, my scheme." He had Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Run against that and see how it goes. Just run. Just go ahead and see how it goes.
I did like the job they did in New Orleans this year, which supports another hypothesis, which is that you should always hire retread head coaches that fail because they got their job for a reason. Hire them as coordinators. It usually goes well. Like Vic Fangio was fired as a head coach. Staley did a better job this year. Dennis Allen did a great job in Chicago this year. Couldn't coach a lick with the big office, but he's a fucking fantastic D coordinator. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But yeah, no, don't. The big thing. So I asked Dan Campbell about this a couple of years ago about the press conference thing, and I think that this is, and I think Liam Cohen fell into this trap is the wrong word, but in this bucket as well. They're not talking to me. They're trying to talk to the fans, and they're trying to talk to their players. And so at the press conference, Dan Campbell's talking about biting kneecaps. Listen, he played in Detroit. He knows what people in Detroit want to hear. Liam Cohen, he's trying to fire up Jacksonville. He's not trying to fire up so-and-so columnist at the Jacksonville Times-Union. He doesn't care. And so I think a lot of times when you mention like the press conference stuff, they're not trying to win the press conference in the media. They're trying to talk to the 53 guys in the locker room and the fan base. And that's why sometimes the media can be like, oh, I don't get this.
The only one that flies in the face of this whole thing is John Gannon's pew verticals. Yeah. I still feel bad for a guy that's saddled with Kyler Murray as your quarterback. I'm sorry. So
I still think Kyler Murray can be okay in this league.
Yeah, he would just have to completely change his mindset. And that's the hardest thing. Like, how do you make a jump? How old is he right now? Like 28? Guys don't make a lot of like jumps at quarterback at like 28.
He is 28. It's also funny he came into the league and has just been was immediately good and just been the exact same player since.
Yeah, there's just never any development.
No.
He really is truly getting by off talent.
It's really incredible. His passer rating has been between 87 and 100 and his average is 91 for his entire career. He's never had like a stud season. He's never had a wheels fell off season. It's just he's Kyler Murray.
Yep, he's Kyler Murray. And you are Kevin Clark. And this is football. No pun intended.
This is football.
Check it out.
Can I ask you one thing about this weekend's games?
Yes.
I sent this to Reed, and I wanted to ask you about it. Top 4 defensive tackle pressure duos in the league all playing this weekend. So if you have interior pressure, you're playing this weekend. Is that a coincidence, or is that something schematic? The defensive tackle pressure, having dogs up the middle, is more important than the edge stuff.
Well, I would say you'd have to look at like each conference championship weekend to get a better sample size. But I do think I am always partial to a dominant interior rusher. What it does is it can make, and as a former defensive end here, like I think those guys can be the straw that stirs the drink even more so because they can shorten the edge for edge defenders. Like that's a fact. If all of a sudden the quarterback's at 9 because of middle pressure 70% of the time, like that might make me an all-pro, And people might say, oh, Chris Long's fucking fantastic. Well, I'm playing next to Fletcher Cox or something. Like I played next to Fletch when I was 32 years old. If I'd have had Fletch with me at 26, holy shit, I would have been getting credit that I was never deserving of. It just, and I barely got to play with Aaron Donald because I got hurt. Right. It really is. And another thing is, more to the point, interior offensive linemen, no disrespect, are the most expendable players on the field, right? They really are. And so, like, if you have an advantage there, the amount of depth guys that you face inside or just subpar players, it's high. And if you've got a really good group, you also, like, all right, if you go each group, LA, they got good pocket crushing ends. They run a lot of games. Okay, so that's one group. New England's been blitzing a lot. They have a dominant inside guy in Milton Williams. They have very good inside guys across the board. They run a lot of games on the outside, right? Denver, is it the edges or is it Zach Allen? I think Zach Allen's fantastic. I think it's a little bit of both. Or is it the coverage?
Yeah.
New England's got great coverage as well. The outlier there for me is the Rams because they don't have the best cover guys in the league.
Right.
They just
There's
get
Emmanuel
pressure. And I think
Forbes
Gibbs
out
Smith
there.
and that group, they do a great job. They run games. They have athletic, fast guys. Fisk. They're a little bit undersized, which is why sometimes they can get the ball run on them, but they can pressure the quarterback. And then the group that we haven't talked about is Seattle, which those guys are fucking studs, man. They are just studs. And, I know that, Mike's not the biggest blitzer in the league, but, just getting pressure with 4 across the board for them. I love watching Leonard Williams play. He is and Tank, but Leonard as much as anybody. That was one of the biggest signings that they made over the last couple of years in Seattle. So, long story short, I would have to see a bigger sample size, but I think you can get on guards in today's NFL, especially like young offensive linemen, and really dominate in the middle of the pocket. And it can make things harder on the quarterback, and also it makes things easier on the edges. And you picture like winning the middle of the field. If you have guys that can reset the pocket, like the middle of the field is such a battleground in today's NFL. If you have limited access there because of a wall in your face, for a lot of these quarterbacks, it's hard. So, is it a coincidence? I don't know, but this year, obviously, there's something to it.
Glad I asked.
Well, man. Hopefully, I gave you something, but I'm not really sure. Like, it's hard to say.
Well, also, just if you pressure a quarterback from the interior, also means you're just a hell of an athlete, and that's going to suggest you can do a lot of stuff in the middle of the field. And if everybody in this league now can run and throw as a quarterback, taking away the middle of the field is a big deal.
No question. Taking away the middle of the field is big. And you look at certain coverage trends and that sort of thing. Like it really is. I think the best offenses in the NFL that are the most dynamic. And this is kind of shoulder content to this question, but like good linebacker play is back.
Yeah. Like
good linebacker play is very important in today's NFL. And, especially with all the eye candy, the motion, kind of looks like the 405 in there when you play a really good team. You have to be able to work through traffic and the whole thing. And you have to be athletic enough to cover these backs in the passing game. So I think the middle of the field is very important in today's NFL. And for a while, you're kind of like, oh, it's a safety or it's a linebacker. Or it's like, but that's hugely important, as is defensive tackle play. So you got any lean this weekend? You lean LA or Seattle?
Rams. I think the quarterback play is better.
Yeah. I hate to say you're right, but I kind of lean Seattle.
And then I lean New England.
A little secret here, and I hope that the people I gamble against on the gambling show don't listen to this, but I think Denver covers.
I'm with you. We had Chris Harris on the show yesterday, and he said the big difference in the playoffs now is like Denver, for as dominant as they were in the regular season, they weren't creating turnovers. And now Nick Bonito is just knocking the ball out of dudes' hands.
Right.
That matters.
Yes, absolutely. And Drake May's putting it on the ground a little bit. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, Kevin Clark, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for bookending this wacky season, man. And I assume you'll be in San Francisco, yeah?
I will be in San Francisco. I'll see you there.
Yeah, we're in the Harbor District. I don't know where that is, but come see us.
I've never heard that.
We're talking about going to Alcatraz.
Live pod?
Yeah, maybe doing some content there on mushrooms. Are you in?
I've never done mushrooms.
What?
Alcatraz seems like the worst place to start.
Alcatraz is the perfect place for you to start. All right. That's the thumbnail right there. Kevin Clark's first. All right. Thanks, Kev.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate
it.